find those 10,000 people and get them.
No, but wouldn't they delay that lawsuit till after the deadline on the collective signatures?
I hope not. I think they're going to try and fast track it. The deadline's coming up pretty quickly. It's April, right? April 13th or something. So it's coming up pretty quickly. Something like this, they can probably fast track it and try and get a ruling sooner rather than later. But what they may do is already start getting it back up for those signatures. They could, if they collect them online, and they go and get the person to physically sign it. So that's what they'll probably start doing, is backing them up with the actual physical signature.
Okay, thank you.
There's been a lot of discussion about retirement for police, fire, state employees. But what I've never heard come up in the conversation is the legislature's impact. How will their retirement and their health care be impacted, and where is that conversation happening at, or is it?
I don't know if it is. That's a great question. And to be candid, since I've been in the legislature for a month, I don't even know what my retirement looks like. But if other state employees are taking a hit to their retirement, the legislature should too, and I would support that. Ryan probably knows.
The bill just came out. Anybody that's elected after 2011 will have a DC system, a defined contribution system, and not a defined benefit.
Funded at the same rate as
capped, just like it is, just like they want to do with the retirement.
So are they treating themselves equally with?
They did. And
equally
what they did is they treated themselves the way the majority party thinks everybody should be treated anyway.
Okay.
And so, it'll be capped, and no more pension. It'll just be a defined contribution.
I've been disappointed with the discussions on retirement, and I know it's changing day by day. It passed out of committee yesterday on a party line vote. I think our Democratic Senator Karen Maine has done a fantastic job of having a seat at the table and making the Democratic view heard. And I've told Senator Maine that I'm supportive of her efforts, and I'm going to make up my own mind. But what she thinks about the bill is going to weigh heavily on me. So I'm not sure, who knows, there's still a lot of time in this process, and it'll continue to evolve. What's been disappointing to me is this attitude from the majority that state employees are liabilities that we need to manage, not a recognition that they are the greatest asset that we have.
Well, my issue is that we were named the best managed state in the nation. It's not one or two people that do that, it's our workforce. So we've had the retirement system has taken a few hits that were substantial. But to classify the state employees as a liability and oxygen suckers that you can take away, I think the danger that I see in the URS bill is that we are going to erode the middle section of government. And so you don't have intellectual capital that stays with them. And then the state suffers as a whole.
There's no long term, police officers. If we don't have a good retirement system that can keep employees, you're right. They're going to leave and go off to the private sector, and we're not going to have. And you look at it. Who are the public employees? Well, the biggest component of our public employees are teachers. These are the people who are day in and day out with our kids. And then it's firefighters who are putting their lives on the line for us, and police officers. They need to be. Well, and they don't get paid a lot of money to begin with.
Well, and that's the argument that we've always been able to retain. I work in HR at the Capitol, and it's always been the argument that we can retain employees with low pay because our benefits were so excellent. And so my fear is we'll see a huge erosion of qualified people.
My mother's a school teacher, and my mother-in-law is a school teacher, both in the Davis School District. And they wouldn't have done this for 40, 30, well, they're about 25 years, because they're not retired. 25 years for the retirement. Yeah.
Let me clarify my feelings on what Mayor Nagel said. With all due respect to our two legislators present, the only real contribution the legislature makes to us being the best managed state in the nation is starving our public sector of resources so that they're forced to be efficient. I think it's the managers and the employees, our policemen and firemen, that are responsible for us being the best managed state in the nation. And where the legislature and the governor comes in is starting with resources before should be vision.
Well, and you know, our state retirement fund took a big hit, but the economy's coming back. I think we may need some changes, but I don't see why we can't wait a year to see where the economy is and make some changes based on real factors. Because I fear that what we're doing is using a bad economy to justify changes that they've tried to do, you know, 3 times in the last decade and have failed.
Well, the last 2 years, they've tried to run this exact same bill, and they couldn't. And they know, but now they see this as the opportunity to justify it because of the economy.
Yeah, Rob.
Senator McAdams, isn't it, please correct me on this, but the state retirement program, the pension program, is over 80% vested, or I'm not.
About 80, is that right?
It's 80% funded.
Funded, thank you. And we don't really, it's actually 86% funded. It was 80%, but we don't really worry about it unless it goes under 80.
Right
Is that
now,
correct?
if retained, it would take 40 years to bankruptcy.
Yeah. So what they don't want to do is to dig into the general fund to help out. But, you know, worst case scenario, at 86% funded, we may have to have some general fund appropriations, and maybe that's part of it. You know, the thing, my day job, I'm no longer practicing law, but I work for Mayor Becker in the city. And the city's had a pretty tough budget year as well, as Ryan knows. And you know, we've had to make some tough choices in the city. I don't really do the budget, so, but I know the mayor's had to make some tough choices, and we're asking employees to work harder, to take furloughs, to, you know, to do more with less. And we've had to get really creative to balance the budget, and some of it is because employees are stepping up and doing more for less, and we really appreciate that. But you don't respond to people who are bearing the burden of the economy by cutting the retirement fund. You know, these are I think our employees really are valuable assets, and our employees are doing their job to survive this tough budget, and I think they're giving us some leeway. And it's not easy to ask them to work more, to work longer hours, to take furloughs. And we actually had all city employees took a 1.5% pay cut. That's asking quite a bit, and I think you need to respond by saying thank you, not oh, and while we're at it, we're cutting your retirement. You know, right?
Not only that, but when those employees did take the 1.5% pay cut, every one of the employees voted to accept that 1%, so that they wouldn't lay anybody off because they didn't want to see anybody in the young guys get laid off.
Yeah. And that's magnanimous. They should be applauded, not have their retirement.
What's the talk about rainy day fund and whether that's going to be maintained or used? Or
What they're talking about, at least for this year, they're taking money out of the rainy day fund for we have a budget, we're 2/3 of the way, half of the way through a budget that also has shortfalls. So we're trying now to budget the current budget year, and they're drawing down on the rainy day fund for that. They haven't decided what they're going to do for next year's rainy day fund. I would expect them to draw down some of the rainy day fund there. I think, you know, they've taken a lot of hit for that. I think I have mixed feelings about it. To some extent, we look and next year's budget's going to be bad too. So I agree with the sentiment that we shouldn't spend the entirety of our rainy day fund this year. We need to leave a cushion for next year. But at the same time, there was some. This is a minute detail that really upset me, and I'm actually happy to see the governor proposed one thing that I thought was troubling. The legislature is actually going back on the governor and doing the right thing, which I don't know what kind of world where the governor is the right-wing fanatic and the legislature is the more moderate of the two. But the governor had proposed, in the rainy day fund, there are actually 2 rainy day funds that we just talk about collectively as the rainy day fund. But there are actually 2. There's an education fund and there's a general fund. So what the governor's proposal was to take the money only out of the education fund and leave the education fund empty, and to not touch the general fund rainy day. And the reason he said that is because he can always spend the general fund on education next year, but he can't spend the education fund on other expenses. So he wanted to, but you know what? I don't know that I trust Governor Herbert, but I want to allow him to have that. You know, I would rather that we keep the money that has strings attached for education, because I'm not confident that next year, when there's not the pressure of an election, he's gonna make the right decision about it.